What's up, ceramic students? Welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to begin working with some slab clay. We're going to roll out a slab. Eventually we'll be carving in some very detailed textures into that slab, but I'll have you take a closer look over here and we'll get started. So the slab that we are going to end up working with will be fairly thin, which is important to note. And then the textures, or the pattern that we'll be working with, is going to have some very intricate carving. So I can get in a little bit kind of more closely here and roll this tile over on its side. You can see that this image has been carved into the tile. If I flip that guy over, you notice that was one solid piece. So we're going to begin this project today. In order to do that, we'll need your canvas board. Yours is probably dirty, like mine is. So we're going to do just a little bit of cleaning first of all. So open up your kit, find a tool that still has a little bit of a flat edge. I still have one of my popsicle sticks that has sort of a flat edge on it. So one of the first things I'll do is just kind of scrape that canvas board down. Keep in mind that with the dust that you're producing after scraping this canvas board is not the greatest to have around the house or to be breathing. So if you can, scoop it right off into a garbage can. We'll need at least maybe 5 by 5 inch cleanish area in the middle. You don't have to worry about cleaning off the whole piece. What we're then going to do is grab a piece of clay that's maybe a little bit bigger than a golf ball, something between a golf ball and a baseball size off our block. Grab that wire tool that we made the other day. Slice off a chunk. And I'm going to make sure I grab just a little bit more to make sure I don't run out. And as always, make sure that you keep that clay nicely wrapped. And while you still have your kit open, grab that extra piece of plastic. We're going to need that. So go ahead and start by hand wedging that clay. I just want to make sure that it's sort of woken up and mixed correctly, especially if you cut a few pieces together. So if you see in my hands, right, we're basically looking at something like a baseball or like a small snowball size. Keep in mind that we'll use our hands as the measurement tool. It's about as much as about fill your hand. And the idea would be that we're going to try to roll out this piece of clay into a thin sheet, or what we call a slab. So you could start by just sort of working that clay down in your hands into a slab form, and once you kind of get it down to about the thickness of, I don't know, maybe say the thickness of your thumb, or about a ½ inch of a thickness, you can lay that guy down on your palette. Now, a couple of extra tools that hopefully you can find something like this sitting around the house, but I've got, this cardboard tube, which is going to work pretty well as a tool for rolling out this clay. Now, this is just like a shipping tube or something like that, but it's really the larger diameter that's going to make this work. So if you had something like, I don't know, like a broom handle or a small diameter dowel, I mean, it could work, but the smaller diameter is going to make rolling out the clay a little bit more difficult. These larger diameter tubes roll it out pretty easily. Now, if your gut instinct would be to raid the kitchen for the rolling pin, you might just want to check with whoever runs the kitchen at your house, because even though clay is pretty clean mud, it is still mud. And if you don't want to get mud on your Christmas cookies, it's probably a good idea to just double check that. So as I'm rolling out my slab here, I'm trying to get a fairly even thickness throughout. It should be pretty straightforward to be able to get that kind of thing on your own, but if you need an assistant, right, or a little bit of an assist to get a nice thin roll, some wooden sticks laid on either side of the slab that the tube registers against. I'll move my camera down so you can kind of see how that looks. You see how the tube is sort of resting on the wooden pieces. It can't press down any farther. Now, these are just some wooden slats that, again, I've split off of a piece of an old 2x4 or something. But man, they work really well for leveling out that piece of clay so that it's about the same thickness through and through and through. If you don't happen to have an extra 2x4 or a hatchet or something like that to split them, you know, a couple of dowels would work just fine as long as they're the same diameter. These ones are not, so I would end up with a slab that's sort of thick on one side, thin on the other. That's no good. I guess suppose if you're really in a pinch, you can grab a couple of pencils, right, and lay the pencils down on either side. Now, pencil is going to be a pretty thin slab, but, you know, thin is okay. If you kind of take a look again at my final thickness on this slab, I mean, that's a pretty thin piece of clay that I've rolled out. This piece of clay, I think I'm going to use these slabs here. They're about a 1/4 inch of thickness. That's about that ideal thickness that we've been trying to go for the whole semester, right? I called it pinky thickness before, about a 1/4 of an inch. Then from here, take that extra piece of plastic and lightly press it onto the clay. What we want to do is basically wait overnight. Now that piece of clay is going to have a lot of moisture pulled out of it from the canvas board that it's sitting on. I don't want it to dry out. I want to get it to that perfect state of leather hard clay. Now during the school year, this is about perfect way to do it. I'm going to come back tonight before I go to bed and just double check this. If I think it's getting a little bit too wet, a little bit too dry, I think what I'll probably do, I don't want it to get away from me, right? We don't have enough clay to waste that, is I'll put a piece of plastic down on my canvas board, put the clay on top of the plastic, and then put the bin over top. That way I get the clay off of the canvas board. The canvas board will continuously pull that moisture out. So if you want to check your clay tonight before going to bed, that's probably not a bad idea. If this gets too dry, we'll just have to crumple it up and turn it into slip like we made our other stuff. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow.